3 years ago, I was stuck in a corporate job making decent money, but felt completely trapped. Today, I run a consistently profitable cleaning company from my laptop, working 1 to 2 hours per day once established, and have complete control over my time and location freedom. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I transitioned from employee to business owner and why building a remote cleaning business was the smartest financial decision I ever made. Let me paint you a picture of where I was at 3 years ago. I had what most people would consider a great job. I was making 6 figures in a corporate role, I had benefits, the whole package. On paper, I was successful. But here's what nobody tells you about these types of positions. You're always going to be renting out your time, and there's no true upside. Most of these roles do not involve any kind of equity packages or things like that, so you're constantly going to be renting out your time. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was in another pointless meeting, and my boss was getting credit for my own work, and I was thinking to myself, no matter how hard I work here, my income is just going to be capped. I would get a small percentage raise at the end of the year if I was lucky, depending on how the company did overall, not my performance, and I'd get a bonus, and it probably was going to be a small one. So I was fundamentally just trading my time for money with zero control of my earning potential. And as I looked around, all of my colleagues had been there for longer than I had, and essentially the road and the map was laid out in front of me. I just had to stay in this chair, be here for another 10 to 15 years, and watch my responsibilities grow and salary grow over time. And for me, I never wanted that life, and I didn't envision myself to be happy if I was sitting in the same chair I was 10 to 15 years down the line. And that was when I realized I had to make a change, otherwise I am going to be that person. And then came my wake-up call. Back in 2021, I had lost $750,000 in crypto gains during the bull market and lost it all when the market collapsed. And I mentioned it in a different video. I think it was the best thing that happened to me because it changed fundamentally the way that I viewed business, the way that I viewed making money and keeping money. It forced me to stop chasing shiny objects or whatever is trending in the moment and focused on building real business, providing real value to customers. And ultimately, that was going to be a real sustainable wealth generation and preservation strategy. So I started researching different business models, drop shipping, Amazon FBA, real estate, all of those typical ones that you would hear about. But as I researched each opportunity, there was always some external factor that was hugely going to determine my success in the business, whether it was huge upfront capital, market dependencies, extreme timing dependency, or just really thin margins that I couldn't control. And when I discovered the remote cleaning arbitrage model, this is when things really started to light up for me, and it made a lot of sense in terms of why it's interesting, why it's a good opportunity, and why I even wanted to get involved with it. So for me, I chose this particular vehicle to try and replace my income for a few different reasons. Number one, the monthly recurring revenue aspect of the business. Because it's cleaning never goes out of style. It's always in demand. Homeowners, businesses, they will always need their place cleaned, which means for you as the business owner, month over month, you're going to have recurring revenue that's going to be there. And that allows you to build a predictable base of cash flow that you can depend on and live your life off of. If you think about it this way, if you had 50 clients paying you $200 a month, that's $10,000 in monthly revenue, and that doesn't account for any other additional clients that you would receive during that month. You don't have to resell those clients every month. They're signed on with your team, with your service each and every month. And that's the type of business that I personally want to be a part of, because the other businesses where you have to literally generate from zero each and every month, whatever your revenue is going to be, to me is a much more difficult company to run. Second, there was a lot of franchises in the space that already proved out a certain particular model that I found attractive. You can call it the McDonald's franchise model. That's typically what people associate when we talk about franchises and the one who originally started it. I was just in Italy and there's still McDonald's there. And I'm sure you've traveled around the world and everywhere you go, there's McDonald's. It's not because they build the best burger in the world. And using that same exact philosophy, I'm applying it to the cleaning business where I understood I don't have to have the best cleaners in the world. I just needed to build the best systems for running a cleaning business. And number three, I saw this as building an asset, not another job. So for me, my intention was never to clean any houses, clean any toilets or anything like that. It was always to build a company at the end of the day that could run without me when I'm not there, that has people in place to do every single thing that is required to grow the company while still saving me time in the business. I did not want to fall into the trap of just starting a business only to buy myself another job. I found that to be pointless in the sense that that would just be the same exact thing as what I was doing currently, which is working at a job. And I think the last thing about this particular model is that it's a huge industry. Cleaning is a $60 billion industry that's growing 5% year over year. It's recession-proof, meaning if the economy is good, bad, there's always going to be demand for cleaning. There's always going to be a need for cleaning, which makes it much more predictable, much more safe than some of the other investments that I was making previously. And on top of that, the business as a whole, the majority of of the operators are still operating like it's 1985. Usually you run into a person who runs their own cleaning company, is a great cleaner, but has no business practice, acumen, or skill set to grow and scale a proper company. So for me, I looked at that as a huge opportunity to come in and be a winner within my own market using all of the business practices and systems I already knew how to implement. Now, here's how I actually made this a reality, because it's one thing to identify a great business opportunity. It's another thing to execute it while you have a job and transition out of it. And I would credit Naval Ravikant for really guiding my mindset when it came to actually implementing this and executing this. I became what I call a smart broke person. So even though I was making great money at my corporate job, I was living way below my means. I was saving thousands of dollars a month because I wasn't going out, I wasn't going to expensive dinners, I wasn't spending money on fancy things. So my baseline amount I was spending each and every month was extremely low, which allowed me to take risk in business. Just to break it down further, I wasn't spending $200 a month getting a gym membership. I wasn't spending hundreds of dollars on food delivery. I was meal prepping at my house. I wouldn't do any expensive dinners on Fridays or Saturdays. I wouldn't go out and spend a ton of money on drinks. Each week, if you map that out, it's $800 to $1,000 you could basically be saving and allocate towards taking some entrepreneurial risk. So that's exactly what I did. Every dollar I was saving, I would put or reinvest back into the business. So I wanted to give myself escape velocity and the best chance to actually replace my income. So instead of lifestyle upgrading when you get your first dollars in a business, I was reinvesting it towards better systems, more automations, better hiring, better marketing, more marketing, all of the things that go into building a great business. I would track every single expense line by line each and every month and make it almost a game for myself on how much money I could save. And I do reference it in more detail in a different video, but I think it's one of the best methods to actually lower your cost basis so you can do these kinds of things. So once I had that freedom to operate and run the business, I was off to the races, I was running the company, I was doing pretty well, and I kind of want to share with you my journey from that point. It wasn't very linear. I'll say the biggest thing that I learned going through the initial process is it very much had growth spurts from time to time with plateaus in between. So just to quickly recap, like my first month, I did about $7,000 in revenue. Again, reinvesting a bunch back into the business. I went from $7,000 to about $13,000 the next month. And I remember that was kind of a little plateau point for me in the sense that I couldn't grow my company until I unlocked how to actually hire great cleaners and do that consistently, because that was always a point of issue for me. I kept churning out cleaners. I couldn't find good cleaners. I didn't have a real process for onboarding, training, and maintaining high-performing teams that my service could grow and scale from. But once I figured that out, it was as if my revenue just jumped automatically. I went from 13 to 20 plus pretty much immediately from there. And from there, I hit another plateau. This time it wasn't about the cleaners, it was actually myself being the bottleneck. And I would say from there, I realized that I was still doing pretty much everything in the business. And if you're doing everything in the business, you're never gonna do anything 10 out of 10. That's when I started to realize I had to delegate, otherwise I was gonna be stuck at this level. So hired a VA. I actually went through many VAs until I finally landed on a VA from South Africa that was able to handle my entire day-to-day operations. But the key in that process is I didn't just give them everything from day one. I had everything documented. I had all the SOPs in place. I had the systems in place. And I basically stair-stepped their development as I delegated more and more off of my plate. And I think that's a major difference between other people, because most people will say, you know, just give them as much as they can as soon as you can. And that usually leads to a lot of failures early. And once I onboarded them, I made sure that their onboarding, training, and development was as good as I possibly could make it. So I had SOPs in place. I documented everything. I had systems, I had organization. Everything was there so they could develop and take over everything with ease. So that's the moment when I started to go north of 30K, but also save a ton of time in my business. So now I was finally growing without actually spending as much time in the business, because I had someone else and a team that I was starting to build on the management support side that could do all of the day-to-day operations. And at that point, I had created my own version of what the McDonald's franchise does, right? I have a system for how to actually build these companies step by step, onboarding, going from ground level all the way to building out your entire team that runs everything for you. And it was at that point that it gave me a ton of confidence. I could walk away from my job. I knew how to do this. I had a business I could run. It was cash flowing. It was paying for my life. I was living below my means. All of those things were getting done, which gave me full confidence that this was going to go well. But I will say that journey that I just outlined, it's not straight. It's not easy. There are hard moments. There's moments where you're going to doubt yourself. And I was no different. During that entire process, I learned a lot lot about myself as an entrepreneur. And there were still moments where I wondered if I should just stay at my job. But to me, the key is building that business, getting that cash flow, and having enough financial cushion where you feel safe enough to make that kind of transition. By the way, if you want to work with me and my team on building your own income replacement strategy by building a remote cleaning business in 120 days, click the link in the description below. So when did the numbers actually make sense for me to jump from my job to do this full time? I had a simple rule. I needed 3 months of expenses covered plus a 6-month emergency fund from my savings. For me, that meant having $15,000 in recurring revenue from my business, not just total revenue, but recurring revenue that I know would be there the following month. And let me break down why that's important. I think a lot of times people look at top line number and say that's the most important number in the business. In this particular model, I would argue the most important is your recurring revenue because it allows you to see what you for sure will have with high confidence heading into the next month. That actually allows you to plan how much money you're going to have and how much money you're going to be able to save given those parameters like myself in terms of whatever you think is the amount you need so you can transition safely. So once I was able to do that, I would say that's when I achieved my own version of financial freedom and I was able to go into it full time. Now I know a lot of people will think freedom means passive income, I don't have to work, and I don't think that's true at all. So I want to give you a quick overview of what it looks like when you do get that so-called freedom from your business. So while I don't do everything in the business anymore, right? I don't pick up the phones, I'm not in the hiring interviews, I am managing the business. It takes about an hour per day for me to go through my entire process of going through the cleanings we have for the day, the performance of the team, any high-level things that got escalated to me, right? That first hour of the day where I basically manage my entire end-to-end process is the most critical part of my day to make sure that the wheels haven't fallen off and everything's going well. Throughout the day, things will pop up here and there in terms of, one-off things that I might have to take care of, but by and large, the bulk of the business is addressed in the first hour. And that's because there's systems built throughout the entire process, right? So there's booking systems, there's automations for the sales process. My VA team knows everything they need to do in terms of SOPs and handling those things. And obviously, as they've been on the team longer, they're just going to become more proficient too, which brings down the total time for everybody in the business. Another key thing is I have dashboards that give me a high-level overview of the entire company, which then allows me to assess what's going on at the company. Is there anything that I need to deep dive on? And that basically becomes what I would call like a metal detector within your own business. If you find areas that need help, like gold, you dig further into that problem, you solve that problem, and you can address things very quickly. But that only comes through having everything organized, everything tracked, and everything in one place. But it's not just about having the money or being able to go into a full-time. It's about the options. When you have a business that's generating consistent cash flow, you have options. You can travel. You can go and do things in the middle of the day. You can take care of chores in the middle of the day without feeling guilty about having to be at your desk. You can say no to opportunities that don't excite you. Last month, I was managing my entire business from Italy for a couple weeks. And because I had everything running, we still were able to grow as a company while I was still gone and basically not available for any communication. As you can imagine, that's very difficult to do at a corporate job without taking PTO. In addition, it provides optionality. I feel like I have the option to continue to grow further, to open new markets, to potentially franchise it one day, or I could keep it exactly how it is and enjoy the current lifestyle that I'm living. And to me, that's the beauty of owning an asset, not a job. And here's another thing that I realized through going through this business. I actually became a better investor in businesses because I've now learned how to run one. Because once you go through the process of building a business, it enables you to dissect other businesses with much more clarity and much more speed, as opposed to someone who just looks at the numbers and is looking at it from a purely theoretical standpoint. So this cleaning business has become my foundation for building wealth in other areas. The consistent cash flow gives me confidence to make long-term investments. The business skills I've now developed open up much more opportunities than I had when I was just an employee. In short, replacing your 9-to-5 is not about chasing some get-rich-quick scheme. It's about building real skills and building something reliable so you can make that transition comfortably. One that gives you options and control of your life. The remote cleaning arbitrage model gave me all those things. It's lean, it's scalable, and it generates the kind of recurring revenue that allows you to go to bed at night knowing the money will be there next month. If you're tired of trading your time for money and want to build something that can replace your job, this model can work for you. Now, if you want to work with me and my team on doing this, click in the link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.